of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is roll call.
Ron Ritchie,
Here.
Jason Borsheim,
Here.
Sam Morocco,
Here.
Bill Scarborough,
Here.
David Lohmeyer,
Here.
Belinda Billings here, Joe Sucher.
Here. We have a quorum. Next item is the agenda approval. I would like to make a motion to amend one item to move G1 from regular business to F1 public hearing. That was a typo on the agenda. Because we held a public hearing, it is technically still a public hearing. And we will get to what I'm gonna say next when we get to it. We're still not having a discussion on it. We're just gonna move to table it when we get there. So I will make that motion. You second it? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? How about a motion to approve as amended?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is public comment for items not on the agenda. There is no one in the office except for, in the audience except for Mr. Moran. Does he have anything he wants to say? Anybody on, doesn't look like there's anybody online either, right? Okay, so we have no comments from the audience tonight. So next, we're moving on to public hearings, item F1. As I said, the applicant has requested to, that we table that because he's making some changes. And unless anybody has any questions, I would ask for a motion to table.
Move to table.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is G2, regular business G2, Dixie Highway, PC file 2025-008. I would like to ask Megan to begin that presentation.
So good evening, planning commissioners. In your packet, there were 3 rezoning reports, one on each parcel. You had requested that rezoning to OS2 be explored. As you know, each parcel has different zoning. They have different parcel sizes. There's some different natural features and topography on those, but the majority of the analysis is the same. The one thing that I will bring up is that the parcel that ends in 007, which is on the corner, is a smaller lot. It's just a little over an acre, and by being on the corner, it has 2 front yards. So that parcel is more constrained than the others and might be a candidate for office, the office zoning district, O, because that has smaller front yard and front yard setbacks and might have a bigger building envelope there. Also, because that parcel is next door to residential across the street, and in that rear side yard setback, office zoning district uses are much more limited, especially the special land uses, than OS2, and that might be more appropriate, given that it's the likelihood that the traffic would access on Pine Ridge Drive rather than off of Dixie Highway. I just wanted to, I discussed that with the chair and wanted to offer that insight to you as you're looking at these. Your next, what would be the appropriate motion would be there to ask for more analysis or actions, or for the planning commission by a motion to formally initiate a rezoning. If you are rezoning all of the parcels or some of the parcels to the same zoning district, you could do that in one motion. If you were going to have a different zoning district for a different parcel, that should be a separate motion. So if you were going to do 005 and 006 to OS2 and 007 to O, those would be 2 motions, but if all 3 parcels you wanted to initiate a rezoning to OS2, it would be 1.
And when we get to the public hearing, if they're different zoning districts, do we have to have 2 separate public hearings?
Yes.
But two parcels with the same zoning, we can have one public hearing for those two.
Correct.
Okay. You done?
Yes.
So, my thought, it's fairly cut and dry. I would open it up to the planning commission if you have any questions or comments. Anybody?
Well, I think that we had a pretty good dialogue last time about
Yeah.
kind of hatching it all out. We kind of really got down into it, you know, so her bringing up the O thing with the setbacks, because I don't want to create a zoning district that makes it almost impossible to develop, and then that be a problem for us initiating the rezoning. So I think that if, with it being a less impactful use to just office, is it office one then? Or
No,
just
just
office?
office.
Okay, that would, I like the suggestion, because it's allowing the landowner more, you know, viable options for developing with the restrictions of the site. And the site is how big?
It's just over an acre.
Okay, so that's even more troublesome, because that means they will have to meet the county stormwater management requirements, being just a hair over the limit, you know? So I think that based on that and the setbacks and the more viable use, that we would probably get less pushback, and it's more, we can show clearly that we took that into consideration, you know, when implementing that zoning on that parcel.
Gives you bigger building and more,
Right. Because that would be I would concur with Megan's assessment that would be better than a blanket. And with an assemblage, though, that wouldn't restrict us from them doing a PUD or an assemblage or anything like that, because that we would be able to alter the zoning anyway, but as a standalone, it gives the petitioner or the landowner more options.
Correct.
Yeah, I like that, even if it requires a separate, split them out, yeah.
Anybody else? Anybody have a differing opinion on that?
Not a different one, but I did. So for the benefit, so really good analysis. It was good to read in advance. For anybody that might come, if it's, we're predisposed to set up public hearing after this, for anybody that looks at this meeting and is trying to track back and to just keep them from having to go all the way back to when we first discussed this, maybe just take a second. I don't want you to read through the whole analysis, but just for the benefit of the recording, if someone's watching, if you could identify the current zoning for the properties that we have, what the master plan kind of implies, which is why we're looking at those and the benefits of the OS, and if you could just for a second, the different OS 1, 2, and O. I just want to get it for the audio record, and then someone who's going through it can kind of get the gist of the strategy of why we're even thinking about this.
Okay.
And then they can dig back farther if they want to. But again, I don't need you to go through everything, just kind of summarize what they are and what our master plan kind of indicates is the best use.
Okay, so the high-level summary is that all of these properties, all three of them, are planned for the northwest sub-area, in the northwest sub-area, future land use map for Dixie Highways Office Service. And then that land use recommendation says the area south of I-75 access ramp is designated as office service. This area includes several vacant properties with good development potential. Given the convenient access to freeway and other amenities along the Dixie corridor, the intended use for the area's office research and related uses. In the master plan, there is a zoning plan, and for zoning for non-residential mixed-use categories, for office service, analogous zoning categories are OS2, but is also comparable is O office and OS1, office service 1. The parcels working from north to south, it's on a diagonal, but north to south for this. The parcel that ends in 005 and its PID number and its parcel ID number is zoned C4, general business, and that would not, that is contrary to what the master plan is looking at. That's a large parcel, that's 8.36 acres in site. It has some significant natural features on it, including a 20-foot depression that would need to be worked around. but you can definitely fit, office service development in there. Also, for folks who are listening to the recording, if you wanted to know what uses would be allowed under the office service district, I would direct you to these zoning reports. They are listed, every use in permitted and special land use is listed. For the parcel ending in 006, that is currently zoned, split zoned, i.e. has 2 zoning districts on it, C1 local business and R2 multiple family residential. Neither of those, again, are those listed comparable zoning districts. This lot is 2.89 acres, and the R2 portion of the site does not meet the minimum lot size of 10 acres for that zoning district, so it's a non-compliant zoning. This area has a significant tree cover, not as much topography, but again, there are conceptual drawings that show that you could put a development on there. For the parcel that's ending in 007, that is currently zoned R2 multiple family residential. Again, that doesn't meet the minimum lot size or the minimum lot width for that district, and it's not a comparable district to what the future land use plan designation is. As we've mentioned earlier in this meeting, it's a particularly small parcel compared to the others. It's 1.175 acres in area. It is on a corner lot, so it's subject to 2 front yards. It doesn't have significant topography, but it does have some large trees. And most likely because of Dixie Highway being controlled by the Michigan Department of Transportation, it's likely that a lot this small would not get a driveway off of that, and so it would have to be accessed from that residential side street.
That was great. Yep. And if anybody wants to access the packets, they can see the aerials, they can see the dimensions. But this fundamentally is strategically us as a planning commission trying to actively align zoning that's out there, understand if it's appropriate to align it with our master plan. So, thanks.
You had, in an email to me, I think, said something about the possibility of contacting the landowners, and tell me your thoughts on that.
Many municipalities would contact the landowners and reach out to them before they initiated a rezoning. I know that the county owns one of the parcels, and there have been some discussions with them previously. That's something you could direct staff to do before you initiated the rezoning. If you initiated the rezoning, then the next step would be to call a public hearing. The property owner and everyone within 300 feet would be notified for that public hearing. If you were the property owner and the first time you received notice of it was a public hearing, you might have a reaction. So that's an option that you could access to. Also in our analysis, we didn't do a deep dive into traffic generation. You could direct us or your staff to look more at that, and really compare it against the zoning districts that are there, those parcels currently are, and give you some analysis. That would be, that was not covered in the original scope that we had for you, but if you directed us to that, we could look at where we are in that budget and see whether that analysis, consultant could do that analysis, or whether we would need to come back to you about extra time.
Sam?
I don't think the traffic studies is relevant as the alignment with the master plan, at this point, because that's not a congested part of the township. We don't have cross-access traffic that we're contending with these particular parcels. Like, I don't think that's would be a big
I
thing in
agree.
the decision-making process. Know, questions. We have, and I can never remember how far things get. We had a first reading, I don't know if Dave knows or not, but, I don't know if we ever had the second reading on the, when a property is being considered to be rezoned, that we're going to put up a sign on the property to let people who outside the 300 feet know within 30 days that we're going to do a rezoning. That's something we had been working on for a while. It did come in front of the township board. I think at one point, does anybody know if it ever got done?
I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah.
I thought we pushed it through.
Well, I
Yeah.
know, but I don't know if the board, I don't remember if it came through the board twice to
I-
make it
yes.
official or not. Okay, well,
I'm
if it-
90% sure.
So,
it has.
okay, well, if
I
it
followed
did-
up on that,
All right, 'cause
but, you know,
there's so many agenda items, I get confused how many went through twice, but, so second part of my question or statement would be, we had, in that, I remember there was a caveat that if a person was wanting to rezone their property, they would be required to put this sign up within 30 days of it rezoning to let people know that it was coming. Now, this is a township-initiated rezoning. So you know, the question is, are we the ones that put the sign up to let people know that this partial, like you see in other communities, is being considered for rezoning, to let the
If-
residents know?
if my memory serves me correctly, I think the initial draft stated that the township would be exempt from that requirement if it was originated by us. And certain members of this commission felt that that should be taken out because they felt the sign should be there regardless of who's initiating. And I think that's what we ended up doing. Is that your memory?
I can't recall. We can check into that. If you're concerned about putting up the sign, what you could do is to direct staff and consultants to double check that. And then also you would have to get a sign, so you may want to look to have the public hearing in December rather than in November
Well,
if you're going down that route.
So what the plan was that the township would have the sign, put up the sign, and the sign, basically, the QR code just directs you to the township website packet. I don't think they ever got it to where it actually went right to exactly what we're talking about. I think you still gotta
Click.
fish forward a little bit more, which I think we could clean, you know, that's something we can talk about cleaning up later. All my concern is that I wanna make sure that we're aware that that ordinance or procedure just passed and that we're following it as a township, because we would be the first ones doing it since it passed, you know, so I wanna make sure we don't
I agree.
not comply with whatever we agreed to, you
I
know?
agree. I'm pretty sure Brian has the signs in our possession. I think he had one made, maybe, I don't know.
I think they were generic, yeah.
Yeah, they were. But
But they at
We
least
can follow.
let you know something was happening to look into it, where we had no other type of early
Yeah.
warning system before, you know?
Jason?
She's got it.
I would just like to say, I would like to see the township contact the landowner prior to the signs going up. I just think that would be the right thing to do,
At least try to.
yes.
I agree.
Agreed,
Send a
yeah,
letter
be
out,
considerate.
whatever.
Question for you, Belinda. One of the things that concerns me about this office zoning district is one of the permitted uses is business, private, or public schools. Business, that's a very broad term. I don't believe the descriptions in our other districts are that broad. I mean, I'm reading it right off the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, while she's looking at that, I just ran across something that might be apropos. And it's come from a lawsuit, Osius versus St. Clair Shores. Without definite standards, an ordinance becomes an open door to favoritism and discrimination. You know, so without, you know, the clause on some of these things, you know, we're just opening ourselves up to,
You're saying without more specificity
Yes.
on that term?
yeah,
Okay.
right. Yeah, I mean, just in general, I'm not, you know, I was just using some time up here while she was looking for something. But, you know, it does keep us, and I also found something else out while she's still looking here. In lawsuits, the courts tend to not favor municipalities, cities, townships, et cetera, that don't work hard to align their master plan and the zoning ordinances. In other words, those cities and townships that go fluff that, when they get sued for certain things, the courts have tended to say,
That's why we're here.
yeah,
Yeah.
Long overdue.
Oh, so, Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
can clarify, it's number 5, business, private, or public schools, so it's business schools, private schools, or public schools, is that number 5?
It's a type of school, not just business, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
That describes the type of school.
You're clear.
Business, private, and public are adjectives to the noun of schools.
You're
Okay.
comfortable that that's what that
Yeah.
means? Okay, okay. Okay. Seems like it would be clearer if it said schools, private or public, but, oh well. If you're comfortable, I would hate to have somebody interpret it otherwise.
Well, and then it says office buildings running the following occupations on one, and then that's
Okay.
very specific, so.
Okay.
Under that zoning district, and OS 2, by definition, takes all of the uses in OS 1, which takes all of the uses that are in O.
Yeah,
So that would be included in any office or office service zoning district.
okay. To expedite this, I might suggest that we make a motion to initiate the rezoning, but, and include in that motion that we direct the planning department to contact the owners, and then hold off on directing the setting of the public hearing until we get feedback from that contact. Hate to slow it down by that, but
Is it gonna matter? Can we do it in parallel? That we set a public hearing and at the same time try to contact the owners?
we could do that. So would we set the public hearing for November, or would we give them the benefit of 2 months and set it for December?
I'm just suggesting that you could have an owner that is very hard to reach or doesn't reply, and are we really gonna not go forward if we do that? So to me, it's, we make the effort, the outbound effort, find out who the owner is and reach out, and in the same time set the public hearing. And it actually gives them.
And you,
a bit
okay.
of-
I would think 30 days is
Yeah.
enough time to
Somebody's out of the
try to
country or
contact the
something.
owner.
Okay.
Is that best practice, Megan? What do you think?
I don't know that there's a best practice in this situation.
Okay.
Certainly polite, and we're polite people. If it was my property, I'd want that someone
Yeah,
reached
me
out, and
too.
if it was a month later, they said, well, we're gonna be setting for this, I would assume some responsibility. I guess it comes back to, would you not do it if somebody just ignored us? And we would, we continue forward, right, so.
Do we know, it's 3 property owners or 2, do we know?
Oakland County's one, right, so.
Oakland County, so I believe that they're owned by different, they have 3 different taxpayer records, but I can't state for sure.
County probably calls back.
Dave, do you think
I've
a month,
I've been on
30
the phone
days
with
is
them
enough
twice
time?
about this.
Okay. Everybody good?
Yes?
Okay, I'll make a, well, okay, I gotta get my information down correctly here.
Yeah, we should do it in,
Yes.
do it by parcel.
Phases or something.
3 different
Your
motions.
motions are gonna be, well, they
They
can be
can
2
be
different
2.
motions.
Yeah. two
Okay.
motions probably.
All the parcels done, okay.
Just do
All right, there's parcel 1.
005, 006, 007 is
Full five,
so we adequate.
Yep. They go up there.
Maybe you gotta use the whole number.
Okay. I will make a motion for the Township Planning Department to initiate a rezoning on parcels number 08-19-351-005 and 006 to OS2, and directing the planning department to make every attempt possible to contact the owners of those properties for the purpose of informing them of those possible rezonings.
And just set a public hearing.
Yep.
That we don't need that in the motion, but we can direct the planning department to schedule a public hearing. That would be a separate action,
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
correct?
that doesn't need to be a motion, but to the motion that you just made, could it be clarified that the motion is for the planning commission to initiate rezonings? Because you're empowered to do that by the zoning ordinance, the planning
I
department is
will
not.
rephrase that to make it read that the planning commission initiate the rezoning.
And you don't need the public hearing in that motion, Megan?
No.
Oh, all right. That's surprising.
Is that just triggered automatically?
You could direct
No.
us to it, or you can include that you would like the public hearing.
We could, there's no harm in including that?
There's no harm in including
Yeah.
that.
I will further amend the motion to include a direction that we set a public hearing for said rezoning in November.
I'll support the amended motion.
One question before we finish
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's when you, that's good.
Did we agree or determine whether we need a sign or not? And is this the moment
I'll
where we
follow.
would do that?
I'll follow up on
Okay,
that. Whatever ordinance amendment we passed would determine that. You know, I'm pretty sure it does, but
Yeah.
I will follow up.
okay. Just wanna make sure we get it straight.
One quick question.
Yeah,
How will the planning commission initiate that zoning request? I mean, are we doing it now?
Yep.
Does this motion do
Yep.
with that?
Yes.
Okay.
okay. I think I'm good.
You need a roll call or something.
We need a second.
I did.
Did you? Oh,
We
yes, you did.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why we had.
Belinda, do a roll call, please.
Ron Ritchie,
Yes.
Jason Borsheim,
Yes?
Sam Morocco,
Yes.
Bill Scarborough.
Yes.
David Lodemeyer.
Yes.
Belinda Billings, yes. Joe Sucher.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I'm just
Well, 7.
looking, does anybody have the parcel number of the third small piece?
It's 007.
Oh, seven.
It is
Yeah,
007.
you hand the whole
19,
thing.
351,
Okay.
07, yep.
So I will make a similar motion that the planning commission initiate a rezoning on parcel 08-19-351-007 to office, and direct the planning commission the planning department to make every attempt to contact the owners of that parcel, to inform them of the potential rezoning, and to direct the planning department to set a public hearing for said rezoning in November. I think I got it all.
Support.
Linda?
Ron Ritchie,
Yes.
Jason Borsheim,
Yes?
Sam Morocco,
Yes.
Bill Scarborough,
Yes.
David Lodemeyer.
Yes.
Belinda Billings, yes. Joe Sucher.
Yes.
Okay. So, planning commission, okay, I think we're good on that. Okay, next item is PC file 2025-010 PUD Subcommittee discussion. As I think all of you are aware, we had put together a subcommittee of the planning commission consisting of 3 planning commission members and 4 people from the community to review some of the past PUDs and develop some opinions as to what we were doing right or wrong in regards to those, or could do better, might be a better way to phrase it. Megan, can you pull up that PowerPoint? You got it. Okay, so if you will go to the next slide, please. So these are the projects we reviewed and the individuals that were on the committee. Dick Carlisle gave me a list of many projects to review. Unfortunately, I did not choose a lot of these as they were pre-2013 and their agendas packets were not readily available. They are not online. We have apparently did not start doing that until 2013. I reviewed every agenda from 2013 on and picked out some of the ones Dick suggested and a few others I thought would be appropriate. This is most, if not all, of the PUDs approved since 2013. I won't swear by that, but I think I got most of them. I'd like to thank the people who volunteered their time. As a group, on our own time outside of our committees, we reviewed, or committee meetings, I should say, we reviewed every agenda packet for each of these projects every time they were presented at a planning commission meeting, and for the most part, every time they were on a board agenda. I think you can imagine the time that took. Next slide, please. Executive overview, for the most part, the commercial PUDs we reviewed, we felt they were a very well done. They clearly met the intent of the ordinance. They enabled development of obsolete sites, improved aesthetics, and in some cases created unique mixed-use opportunities. Not so much for the residential aspects of those PUDs. We felt the ordinance provides too much arbitrary discretion, which resulted in variations in site design, building design, landscaping, setbacks, density, and more, with minimal or no discussion of the rationale for those variations. Next slide, please. Regarding density, residential PUDs exceeded the density of the existing zoning, the surrounding zoning, the surrounding land use, and the master plan in every case. Pine Vista was developed at a density of 2.07 units per acre. It was zoned R1B. The surrounding zoning is R1A and R1R. The master plan designated this site and the surrounding area as suburban residential. Ardmore was very similar. This was developed at a density of 2 units per acre, zoned R1B. Surrounding zoning is R1R, a PUD, and R1B. The master plan designated this site and the surrounding area as suburban residential. Northridge was developed at 2.7 units per acre. It was zoned R1A. Surrounding zoning is a mix of R1A, R1B, C, and R, and R2. Although a budding piece of property was zoned multifamily, it is actually developed more in line with R1B single family. The master plan designated this site as part of the Sashabaw target area, and the master plan designates the surrounding area as suburban residential. Although the residential aspects of Walton Village were developed at an average density of 5.17 units per acre, the largest part and most centrally located and visible portion, Phase 1, was developed at a density of nearly 8 units per acre. It sets the flavor for the entire area. Approximately 35 acres of this development were zoned multifamily. Approximately 50 acres were developed as residential. Again, in the opinion of our subcommittee, buffer zones plus open space plus density bonus equal overdevelopment. Next slide, please. Findings in open space preservation. The cluster lot ordinance exists within our zoning ordinance. We feel it is a much better option for open space preservation. It requires a developer to provide a parallel plan and develop at a density concluded via this parallel plan. I reviewed every PC agenda back to 2013, and I do not recall seeing one cluster lot development. It is not being used. Why would a developer use a cluster lot ordinance when they can use a PUD and get an automatic step up in density, plus maybe more. The current density bonuses offset or dilute the open space objectives to be achieved via PUD. By squeezing more units into a small area, we are actually reducing the open space. The same open space could be achieved with a cluster lot, plus more by having fewer units in the developed area, therefore more open space between these units in the developed area. Ardmore had 30% open space. Northridge approximately 32. Pine Vista had 67%, although visually you don't see it. This open space, for the most part, is on the perimeter. You can't really tell it's there. Visually, it could be part of the adjoining property. Overall, it is the committee's opinion that this development appears as a densely populated development. Walden Village maybe has 15% open space. Why? It's the largest, most densely populated, most prominent development, and it has by far the least amount of open space. No rationale or justification. Next slide, please. Finding setbacks and buffers. As we said, there are variations in the perimeter setbacks and buffers from the main roads with no explanation or analysis of why. Pine Vista was 79 units. The perimeter buffers were 70 to 125 feet. The depth from the main road, the setback from the main road was 120 feet, and it was poorly landscaped. Ardmore, with just 26 units, had 25 to 60-foot perimeter setbacks and a 200 nicely landscaped buffer from Clarkston Road. Northridge, 54 lots, had perimeter buffers of 20 feet with a 250-foot, very nicely landscaped buffer from Walden. Walden Village, with 258 units, has minimal perimeter buffers and minimal setbacks from the main roads. Again, why? Next slide, please. Design and layout. Northridge was developed with high-quality building materials and design, as well as excellent landscaping, including deep and excellent screening from Walden. Pine Vista has very typical designed buildings with standard quality. Landscaping is minimal, with a shallow setback and minimal buffering from Clinton View. Walden Village also has typically designed buildings and next to no buffering from either adjoining land uses or major roads. Why would we allow Pine Vista to have a much shallower and poorly landscaped buffer from Clinton View? Why would we allow Walden Village, the largest and most dense project, to have such minimal buffering everywhere? Next slide, please. Pedestrian and connectivity. We found some inconsistencies here. Pine Vista, for example, has sidewalks on one side of the road only, and they are built right up next to the road, no lawn area between the sidewalk and the road. Poor alignment of trails. Again, Pine Vista, a trail goes through an open space in the middle of the project, and it cuts across the narrowest portion. It could have easily been designed to meander throughout the length of it. In general, we saw a few meaningful links to broader greenways. Next slide, please. Yeah, overall assessment, as I said, the committee felt the commercial projects were well done. We think some changes are needed as our PUD ordinance or ordinances in general pertain to residential developments. What are our next slide, please. What are our recommendations? We feel that we should somehow consolidate all our PUDs, PRDs, PROs, and cluster lot ordinances into one streamlined option for residential developments. We should cap density increases, eliminate bonus stacking that offsets open space gains. And we should require parallel plans for comparison to show true benefit. More specifically, next slide, please. We should define open space at a minimum percent and what is included and excluded in the calculation of that. Sidewalks should be on both sides with green separation from the road. Trails should meander through the open space, and we need to place more emphasis on the value of active and passive open space. Next slide, please. As far as design, we want to encourage side entry garages and alleyways, require true diversity of design, not just elevations. Introduce and encourage the concept of isolation of a project. I would refer people to both Bridgewater and Hidden Lake, which are two multifamily developments on Sashaba, and you can hardly even tell they're there. And we should require higher design and materials. Open space and trails, we should emphasize the value of woodlands that are part of an existing greenway. We should tighten up standards for no-touch zones against adjacent property. We should encourage central connected greenways and establish minimum buffer widths along arteries and freeways with triggers for wider buffers. Next slide, please. If we fail to do anything, we feel it will result in a continued erosion of our master plan authority, overburdened infrastructure, loss of natural resources, and a decline in our community character. The rest of this, you can go to the next slide. The titled appendix is, if you haven't already, you can look at your leisure. It includes comparisons of our existing master plans and zoning districts for these areas. It shows aerial views before and after, and a couple of graphs that kind of repeat things that I've commented on. It is my intent not to reach any conclusions here, to make this presentation and give food for thought, and ask everybody to go back up for the next 30 days. If you're not already, read these ordinances again, familiarize yourself with them, and come back hopefully with some conclusions on what you think does or does not need to be changed. Other than that, I would be glad to field any questions. And I would like to thank Joe and Jason for their participation.
I had a comment.
Yes.
That's one of the questions, but I just want to know, one, thank the committee, because I thought this was really concise in the package. I think you guys did a really excellent job. I think picking it back to about 2013, even if we had them online before that, I'd like having the last 10 years. It's probably a better snapshot than what we've done before. And I think some of these are just really revealing. If the one that struck me, because it's on the same road as I am, it's not far from where I live, is the North Ridge. When I first saw that developed, and I wasn't on the planning commission, then obviously, I couldn't figure out how that got through, right? It's just laid out like like a mobile home park. It's just like, it's probably the most efficient way you could do it. And the homes are quite nice, and the people that I know that are back there really like the ranch, you know, a lot of seniors back there. But when you look at some of the really spectacular developments we've had, you're like, how did this happen? That it looks so stark. So I think there's some really good suggestions here that I started chewing on. The whole density question, when we get into that, it gets twisted, I think, by some folks. I love the fact that we look at different layouts in commercial with the cluster options and are able to see how much open space you can secure with those. So I love the kind of the lean into that, as we should kind of do that on a regular basis. Sometimes just maintaining density doesn't get you the best result. It's, you know, maybe a little denser in this piece and you keep all this open space. So I like the way of approaching it. But yeah, some of the ones that you've used specifically as examples here, the residential piece really surprised me. it doesn't surprise me as much that we've had more success with the commercial, aspect of it, but I thought it was excellent, and I share your compliments for the committee to really make it happen.
Thank you. Joe?
Aside from the accolades for being on the committee and doing all this work, let me assure you that Bill did the majority of this work. I don't know how many gazillion hours you must have spent down in your bar in the lower level of your condo going over this acreage of paperwork. So I just wanted to make that clear, that Bill did an enormous amount of work on this. And it shows, because it's a great project. Great project. Without his leadership, it would not have happened like this. It would have been up to me, it'd been a mess.
Thanks. Sam?
It's about time. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
You're telling everybody what we already all knew. We've been a little sloppy with getting the rewards for what we've been giving, you know, and I think this really highlights and I think that what the new way that we're doing pre-construction meetings, you know, is in the right direction of emphasizing what you know, me being on the planning commission 20 years, I've voted for many projects that I wish would have been better, you know, I admit that. But it was always hard to do it when you have we've always been driven by the developer coming in with a development with as much crap as you could possibly pack on a piece of property. That's the starting point. That's always been the starting point. And when they come to us, it's with the conceptual, looking for an actual approval to conceptual. So you haven't really had a chance to really negotiate with them. It's just, that's what was put in front of the board, and this is what we're looking at, you know? It's not, the system's not designed for us to sit down and be like, hey, why don't you, it is, but it's hard to do that when money's been spent, plans have been drawn. It made that very challenging. And now, for an example, we just had a petitioner come in with a plan, like Dave mentioned, that just looks like a trailer park. Every inch of the property's jammed in there. There's no open space. And it didn't make it to the planning commission. We told them then, you don't qualify for a PUD because there's no community asset, there's no benefit to us in what you just submitted. It's not even going to get to the planning commission. Go back and meet the intent of the ordinance. Get some benefits, figure out how to get some open space, and then you come back and sell it to us that you did a good enough job that we would even consider the starting point, you know, and that's where the bar needed to be raised, and this has been a long overdue needed conversation of we need to set the bar high. You know, we're down to so many parcels. We've seen what mass destruction does. The benefits are minimum, and you know, I think that you're just bringing it all to light, and we can see it, but you know, saying it's this new way of going through it with everybody is critical, because just like with the petitioners not having complete packages now, like we're not,
Yep.
we need to step up our game. We've been a little bit laxadays, and it all started to deteriorate during the recession, you know, in 06 and 08, and then when it started to come back, we were in need of redevelopment and development. We got a little sloppy, got a little, you know, started giving a little bit more, too much away to you know, so we didn't lose anything. And but to be honest with you, in the 20 years I've been here, no matter how hard we pushed, we've never lost a development. We just stopped pushing harder. You know what I mean? We've
That's
never,
actually a good comment.
we
We think about it, well, they'll go somewhere else, rarely.
they don't go anywhere
Rarely,
else. They
yeah.
just work with us. We've never not been able to get our way. When we approved the Beaumont project, which didn't happen, I mean, we only allowed them to use 30% of their property.
The one over on
Beaumont,
15?
on 15,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Beaumont. I mean, that was a huge, we pushed and pushed and pushed. I mean, we moved we moved the hospital so it can never be expanded on.
Yeah, I
We were
remember.
doing some pretty major stuff with those developments, and they kept coming back with, okay, you know, we'll figure it out, we'll work with it. And I think that threat of them walking away is not a real threat, because we're a very unique place. We're the last people on the sewer. We're really the end of the accessible Oakland County to the 75 corridor. Like, I think that there was a time where we didn't realize what a benefit it was to come here, how good Independence Township is, and now I think that mentality is,
Yep.
like, you gotta earn to come here and give us something good, because we're not in a hurry, we're not, you know, I've always said, that the faster you develop, the faster you live beyond your means, the faster the taxes go up, you know, slow, steady growth keeps everything in check, you know, so that we're in no hurry. That's why when developers come in here and they say, oh, well, you haven't developed it in 20 years, that's fine. It can be woods for another 20 years, it's not, you know, we're not gonna compromise,
I'd rather be late than wrong.
we're not gonna compromise to gain, developmental dollars. And a lot of times when you do that, it encourages redevelopment, because then that development part is more challenging, and maybe it makes more sense to then redevelop instead. So I think this is super great. I appreciate all your effort, Bill.
Thank you.
It's well needed and well appreciated.
You guys?
Yeah, I think the master plan describes Independence primarily as a residential area, right? And so, I appreciate the invitation to be part of the subcommittee. I enjoyed, a lot of the work. It was a lot of work. But I guess, the conclusion is kind of sad that we've discovered that the primary focus of our township is residential, yet that's where we fell down in the planning and the execution. So I wanted to make sure that that's juxtaposed against, this is what our township is all about, but the vast majority is residential, and we need to get that right. So I absolutely support tightening this stuff up as much as we can with what properties we do have left. Yeah.
Ron?
I guess my comment is, I'm all for having some more controls over new developments and everything, but some of the examples that you presented, like Northridge and even somewhat on Ardmore, where the housing setback and there's landscaping up in the front. You know, a lot of it was predicated based on the topography of the lots as well. Like Northridge with it sloped from the high in the back to low in the front, so the retention features and stuff are all in the front, which lend itself more to have more landscaping there as well. So I think just to say that you want this certain thing on every development might be pretty hard depending on the topography of whatever the lot comes forward to you. So to me, that should just be a caution on when you're demanding certain things, it might not fit with every development, so.
It's a good point, appreciate that input. And
You gotta remember,
to contrast
across
that-
the street is totally different. It's in the town center, and it, you know, like everybody talked about, why isn't everything back farther with more landscape in the front? Part of the town center criteria is everything is out at the road. It isn't buffered by landscaping in front of it, so, you know, to use the town center as a, you know, this is a bad plan, it's like, it's a different plan than the other ones, because it's in a different area with different rules and everything as well. Could have been better at, you know, every plan I've ever worked on, at the end, Northridge is one where the houses, you know, we balked at the houses being so aligned.
And identical.
But, well, just, you know, regimented, I guess, whatever, on paper. it
They're
looks
pretty
very
aligned.
bad, but when you drive
Yeah.
through it, to me, it's a pretty, it presents pretty well, so.
Yeah, we have one of our former planning commissioners that lives there, and people
Oh, is that
like it,
right?
love it quite a
Oh, yeah.
bit. I think what we're really getting at, just the last comment, I guess, is what's kind of uncovered here is there are a lot of developments out there that we can look at and say, that's as good as you could get that, right? Now, that's kind of how it went down, and this is a reason for that, but we could probably go through this list and say, I think we did our best, we could have done better. That's where we're coming from,
Right.
right? So I think what our challenge is that the committee's looking at is, can we put some things in place that make it less probable or less likely that we'll say we could have done better, right? Some things in place that we know we checked through, and I think the idea of the, looking at the, you know, two different ways of doing things, as we do it with clusters, right? This is if you do enforce it, and this is if you do implement it, this is if you don't, is one. But for the jewels that are left, you know, the handful or so of property that might fall in this category, we should really wanna make sure that we get the very best there. So I like the idea of like, can we play with the tools that we have to make it more likely that when we get out of here, that we look back on the next 10 and say, I'm pretty happy with every one of those. We couldn't have done much better, given what the land is. That's where you're really coming from, I think, as a committee.
Joe?
I think one of the, at least the takeaway for me is becoming that approval of plans should take on maybe a broader consideration of what's there. Maybe, this is gonna sound a little bit crazy, but maybe zoning should be more related to topography. I mean, if you got a big hill and you can see it, like Pine Knob is staring in front of you, you know, you don't zone it for this. You know, you avoid that because you know what's gonna happen in the end. Now, I mean, there's no rules like that, but, you know, when you brought that up, the topography, you know, it made it easier to do a development that had landscaping in the front. How do we take advantage of that topography when we're planning and zoning what can be there in the future? Pie in the sky, I know, but I'm just saying, maybe we just need to broaden our horizons a little bit when we're thinking about stuff like this. I can't find a better place to do this, you know, but I'd like no, I'll wait till later on. And it's not the follow-up, it's not that,
Okay.
it's something else.
Joe, or Sam?
So, Megan, part of the issue with PUDs has always been that, you know, we basically start from scratch and negotiate, you know? How do you get some, you know, and I think part of what Bill was trying to uncover is, you know, maybe if he found some other baselines, like how can we put some baselines in, like I know it's a PUD, but like if you're building a multifamily next to commercial, you can be within 20 feet of the property line. You know, multifamily to commercial property, you know, now that's different than residential to commercial property and commercial, you know what I mean? How every use has a little bit closer proximity. But say we wanted to, because you never know who the planning commissions are gonna be and you never know who the boards are gonna be, you know, how do you put a baseline protection in as a start point for a PUD? Like setback off the road, you know, natural feature buffers around the perimeter, like, instead of starting from 0 and everything's on the table, is there a way to put a protection in place as a start
Yes.
point? You
Yes.
know?
That's the next, that's logically the next step.
Yes, you
Almost like a
can.
Is that the
checklist of
intent
things.
to get this, to get to us to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can. You can have basic design requirements for a PUD. I would suggest looking at Oxford Township's plan unit development for residential. They have a mixed-use plan unit development, and then they have a residential plan unit development. In their residential, they have, very specific definitions about what open space is and can and can't be, excluding stormwater retention, other things, also setback buffers, a lot of things that I've heard you all talk about in terms of what you want in development. It also requires a parallel plan, so then you can see one-to-one how it would lay out, and then adjust the density from there. And then it has standards for allowing density bonuses, and the density bonus is capped. It does have a lot of exceptions in it that allow it to be a little more, it just allows a lot of exceptions that I would think you would look at and you might find those problematic, based on the standards standards of quality that you're looking for and to establish a baseline. My main advice to you is, make the right choice the easy choice. So you have a fair idea in your head what the right choice is, and so if the right choice is to cluster, then that should be a permitted use, a cluster, and then a conventional subdivision might be a special land use, requiring a public hearing
That's
or
interesting.
whatnot. That's been done in other communities. So there are, just for a broad piece of advice, make what you feel is the right choice, the easy choice. Cause time is money to developers. They're gonna look for the easiest process, but they're also gonna look for how they can get the maximum return on their investment. And there is a balance between that time of approval when they can get a shovel in the ground, and then also, to how many units per acre.
Mr. Chair? A question. Great suggestions. Do you have a suggested way that we could create a process for getting to where we are with no base to Oxford base? I just use that because you mentioned it. You know, what process would we go through to get in paper approved, this is where we want to be for the development of a PUD?
You
Does
would
that
need
make
to-
any sense?
Yeah, no, you need to know what your basics are, write those down.
That's part of but that's part of the process.
Right, that's part of the process is that, I think it would work that you need to articulate and come to an agreement as a group
Mhm.
as to what you feel are the musts or the needs, for a PUD development coming before you now. And then what you wanna incentivize, cause the PUD, you can use a density bonus, in order to incentivize things, and those are the things that you want. And then, or would like to see, and then you just adjust the language from there, and then you would give it to us or to your staff, somebody who has the expertise to put it in the technical language that it needs to be and to go through there. I would also advise you, once you know what your musts are, to maybe look to have a joint work session with the township board to make sure that they're on the same page in terms of what it is before you invest time and money in writing actual zoning amendment text.
I mean, I can see a project coming out of this.
Yeah, it probably will be.
Well, it needs to if we're gonna set a baseline.
I know, I agree.
Set some guidelines, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
end result, Megan, just to clarify for whoever reviews this meeting, is changing the zoning ordinance, right?
It would be a zoning ordinance amendment to change the PUD article.
I would elaborate on that. I'm not convinced it's just change the PUD. I question, do we need a PUD, a PRD, a PRO as it pertains to residential development? I realize, so, you know, do we
Yeah.
need all those? And if you want to achieve some tighter standards, if we have a PRD and a PUD, you've got to put those same standards in both ordinances, so it's, becomes much more encompassing. So is there a process to simplify our ordinance as part of this too, so that we get more consistency across all of them? So,
You could absolutely simplify them. I think each of those PUD types were developed for a specific purpose, for a specific point in time to solve a specific problem. So some of those do still exist. For example, on Dixie Highway, you probably wanna keep the PROs. Because that helps you to deal with those very small lots that have a lot of challenges. And that gives you a lot of flexibility to deal with those. And that's a very targeted tool. But you have the PRD, which one hasn't been used in years that was?
cluster.
Yeah, so the cluster, you have to have a cluster by state law that require that, and you have, that where they preserve 50% of the open space.
Right.
Now, that's a lot of open space and not a lot of people ever take that option. You can have a cluster that has the same type of things that maybe is 20% or 30% open space, and that might be to you what the right type of development is. Then you could adjust that, make that a permitted land use, and then, so it doesn't have to have a special hearing.
We
And then you can
currently
put
have both.
a lot, yeah, you already have both, you can put a lot of rules in that. because it's just that if the applicant meets all the rules, you're administratively saying they can go forward. Because, and when you have a site plan,
Yeah.
it's administrative, so that's a, if you crave negotiation, if you have to have negotiation on every single one, then that's not the tool that you likely
So
want.
just, I really, I prefer not to have it, but I like to negotiate and adjust and tweak, and sometimes there's innovation that comes out of that conversation, but I liked your idea of the best, I don't know, I'm not gonna say it the same way, but the best way forward is to try and change the default condition to what you kinda want, right? So if you want, and a parallel would be back when we first started site condos decades ago, right? Like, never had been heard of, what's a condo, everybody was afraid of them. Within like 4 years, there's nothing but site condo, because everybody's like, well, this is, okay, first of all, this is the easiest way to do it, it's fastest, you get this done quicker, and like they adapt real quick. What you want people coming in, and with any design activities, people come in and say, okay, I kinda know what I wanna do, what are the rules? And then I start fitting to to the envelope of the rules. So the easier we make that to move in the right direction, we change our default condition that, okay, in Independence, this is kind of where you want to go to start with. It's easier, faster, and it gets them what they want. So the very first cut is something that's nice, right? And then we're tweaking, and then we're not like, okay, I like the way you laid this out traditionally, we'd like to change everything, is we want to stay away from that. So I like I gotta soak on this a little bit, I like the idea of make the base case, you know, as leaning as far into what we want as possible, right? And if that's the default is, for instance, a cluster option, then let's go there. It certainly shows, you know, what you can do to maximize open space, and, you know, even though the density in that area is greater, the overall density is still consistent. So I'd like to think about how we do that and say, let's make coming in when someone says, what do I need to do? It's just not a set of rules that I gotta, okay, if I do this proposal, I meet everything, and you end up with something kind of crappy, right? Whereas it's very hard when you tell someone, we're willing to bend any rules if it's a nice development, like, I don't know what that means. That's are you ready, really all of the rules, or just like one or two? So I like the idea of changing our entry scenario.
You see, I think that people don't consider the assemblage and the risk of development in the outlying rural areas of the township, but that's where it's gonna go. So, you can drive down Sashabaw right now and buy 40 acres off Sashabaw Road, okay? Now, maybe the guy don't wanna sell it today, but he's sitting on a
It's still
40
there.
acre
It's there,
parcel.
yeah.
And if you buy that 40 acre parcel and you have 3 acre minimum, you know what I mean, and you can only put 13 houses on it, it is an attractive option to say, well, put these 13 houses, you know, on this 20 acres, save you the money on the roads, the
Huge.
utilities, the infrastructure, and donate the other 20 acres back to the township. It is beneficial to the developer to do that on big parcels, and out in the rural areas, big parcels aren't very expensive because they don't carry the value of development like smaller parcels do in denserly, in areas that more density is allowed, if that makes
No,
sense.
I got it.
So my fear has always been, like, I know that the parcel, like, for instance, the Clarkson Family Farm, you know, that 36 acres was donated so that they could
Mhm.
build on the other 36 acres on the other side of Pine Knot Road, you know, and instead of having 3 acre lots, they only have, you know, 1/3 acre lot, whatever suburban residential is, you know, enough to have septic and well. You know, cause if we ever get Oak Hill Road paved, the south side of Oak Hill Road in our township has a mega amount of huge acre parcels that would be ripe for redevelopment for residential type parcels, you know, because it would be adjacent to a paved road, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that the cluster can be I think that once the small parcels close to town are eaten up, that's gonna be the next developable, strategy, you know?
Yep. And you end up with something that stays looking kind of like what it is.
And,
for
you
a lot
know,
of
and
people.
that's how you start gathering up some big open spaces, you know, so I like the cluster in that respect, but it really only makes sense when the underlying zoning has parcel sizes so large that you wanna reduce them to something manageable, which then allows you to donate the balance, cause you're dealing with big acre parcels to begin with.
But
You-
even if they don't donate, Sam, to your point, it's still cheaper to develop.
Still cheaper to.
You still
right,
saved them, you
right,
still made it a
Even
huge
if they
incentive
just
for
left
them.
it all open.
And better
space,
for us,
half
yeah,
of
even if it
it's
stayed-
still,
yep.
because it would be a natural feature area, or it would be a common area, or it would be
Yeah,
protected, or
retention
under,
pond back there,
somehow,
or-
it wouldn't just, be be the land later to develop.
Yeah,
But
it's a benefit to us whether they donate it or not, as long as we keep the natural
as long as
resource.
it's open
Yeah.
space.
It's
I
just
just
like,
think
we wanna
that's gonna
think
be a
of this.
wave of the future, because you're gonna need when we need more new housing, you're gonna be forced to go out to big acre parcels. And it doesn't make sense for developers to build houses on 3-acre lots. The roads and infrastructure, to get past every one of them to the next one, is very cumbersome and expensive,
Jason?
So, good discussion.
Mhm.
What do we do next? How do we proceed?
I like your idea of, we need everybody to kind of think about this a little bit and what we want to bring to bear. It would be helpful if we,
Yeah.
at the next, maybe at the next meeting, we took a look at the remaining parcels in the township most likely to be conducive to residents. We want to talk about the residential piece more than anything else, right?
Mhm.
So maybe we took a look at, to Sam's point, the stuff out there that still looks like it's more likely to go residential than commercial. Like Oak Hill's a good example. I think there's some areas on Allen and Reese that saw some pieces that they don't necessarily want it, but there's some 20-acre pieces that could get split up out there. Maybe we can kind of color code where we think, because I think we should think of in terms of, okay, what's left? What do we think is, may come in on that? That might help us out a little bit from a guideline standpoint. Or maybe we just get that before the next meeting and kind of have a basis for where it's gonna go. 'Cause I'm assuming that we're right. A lot of the stuff that's out, you're not gonna see the kind of development that we've seen in the past. Unless we start tearing up golf courses or something.
Yeah, but Megan, can you text us, all of us, a link to that Oxford PUD?
I can share with you a link to the Oxford PUD, yeah.
I don't know, we can talk about it next month, maybe it makes sense to, instead of hashing this out at multiple planning commission meetings, to make a subcommittee of the planning commission.
Take this work to the next step.
Yeah, we can finalize that next month. It's gonna be a process, I know that. And I don't know if we make, if we beef up the cluster ordinance and try and encourage people to use that versus a PUD. To me, it still seems like it's not efficient to have these kind of developments being developed under one or the other.
But if you don't have a big enough parcel, the cluster's not gonna be an option,
True.
so,
I'm not,
I would always have a PUD option. Your goal is for the PUD to be used in special circumstances for those things where somebody has a unusual and innovative design that makes sense, or
redevelopment.
well,
but ideally what you do is know what you want for residential, and it might be different in different zones or different places beyond where your sewer boundary is and where it isn't. And then say, these are the things that we want, and have that be, and have those rules in place.
but what was unusual about Northridge or Pine Vista? Why did,
I wasn't part of those, don't know why, but the reason a PUD is even in the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act is to solve unforeseen problems or allow innovative things to happen.
Well, and that, one of those could have been suburban residential, because that was a lot of those are assemblages of parcels. They didn't start as one parcel, they bought 3 people's parcels and put them together, or 2 or 5 people's parcels. But if you have a suburban residential and an R1, R, you need to have the PUD to cross mingle zoning, or, the zoning, you kind of need that. I look at it like redevelopment too. If you had OS1 and you had a C4 and you wanted to knock it all down and put in one development, you need the PUD to do multi-zoned projects together. So it can come into play in a lot of different ways, but mostly to take parcels that are non-conforming and make them all, make it all cohesive with one development is kind of how I always seemed that why people were asking for it. They were trying to mingle multi-zone parcels together to make larger parcels.
It's the wild
or
card in our deck.
non-conforming parcels, you know?
What's our wild card?
Megan, you said that we should always have, in your opinion, right, always have a PUD option for special circumstances. But I think one of the things that the question came up is that it almost feels like everybody just ignores the zoning and says, I'm just gonna apply for a PUD because I don't care. This is what I wanna do and I'm gonna go the PUD route. So they just ignore everything because they can get,
Do whatever they want.
they can do whatever they want. Like, who cares about zoning, right? I mean, that's kind of the feeling that we were discussing, and I don't know how to put it in the right
So-
words.
It's the first choice instead of the
Yeah,
last
right,
choice.
it's the first
So-
choice, and there's no real special circumstance, they just wanna do it that way.
So in the early aughts, so late nineties, early aughts, you were in a big housing boom, and people were looking, and developers were looking to build as many houses as possible. There wasn't, some of the cluster, I think the cluster law, the change in the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act to require everybody to have a cluster didn't come in until the mid-aughts. This was a way for, PUDs were a way for municipalities to get the design that they wanted, but they needed to have a carrot, and the carrot was density. So they did that through PUDs with big residential developments. What then happened is then developers became very enamored with the density bonuses. But also municipalities got very enamored with, we can negotiate every single one and get what we want in every single instance. It's very hard to, once you have power, it's hard to give it up. So I think that those, and I saw this happen in many other suburbanizing communities during that time. Then we had the recession, everything, and you did not have the same development pressure happening because you just didn't have the same financial engine behind it. But then we're left with the same rules that were built for this system that generated a lot of residential development. So you're at a place where you're looking at older rules that were built for a different development scenario environment than you have now. So what your challenge is to figure out what you want and then change the rules.
Okay,
Okay, I vote for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
me,
all right. Everybody good?
Yep.
Second.
Good
Should I have a roll
discussion.
call vote on that?
All right, we will take this up at next month's meeting. Megan will link us with that Oxford PUD, and maybe we can get some ideas from that, and figure out how to go forward from there. Okay?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'd like to get to the point where everyone says, what's Independence doing? Let's see what their ordinance are. Because it seems like for a long time, we've been,
looking everywhere else.
we keep looking to who everyone's a little bit farther along with what
Yeah.
they've done. You know what I mean? And we gotta get caught up. So I think that's great. That's a good step in the right direction.
Thanks.
Don't fool yourself, they're already asking, what is Independence doing? I think there's a lot of standards here in this township that people are looking at too, so,
Oh, good. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
That means we're getting something right.
a lot of good things here in the township.
Good.
Okay, next item, approval of the minutes. Anybody got any changes? I think Belinda and I gave some to Brian.
I didn't have any changes to it.
I had minimal. I don't remember what it was, but. Anybody else? How about a motion?
Is the motion to approve the minutes as amended by your,
Oh, I think what's reflected in here reflects those amendments.
okay, so they're already in the minutes,
Yeah.
so I'll move to approve the minutes from September 11th, 2025,
Support.
as presented.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So just so everybody knows, Brian was in the habit, I don't know if it'll continue, but he would forward the minutes to Belinda and me because it seems like we're the ones that had most of the changes.
I thought he was sending them to Sam for a while too.
What-
No?
And we would give them back to him with our corrections, and then he would change them.
Okay.
So,
I just, when you said that you made them, I just want to make sure they were.
yeah,
included.
I got
So-
that. That's why I commented on
Okay.
that.
You have to ask for nays.
Oh, did,
You stopped
what did I
me.
say? Okay, any nays?
Okay.
Thanks, thanks for keeping me in line
That's
here.
all right, I don't miss anything.
Consultants report, Megan, you got anything?
No, no, sir.
No mas.
Oh, but, I actually do. The, tree preservation zoning ordinance amendments that you had recommended to the township board went to them at their last meeting. They passed it at first reading with a few changes. They wanted that for the, I think it was the forested canopy, that the 3 acre, take off the sentence that dealt with it allowing the acreage to be beyond, the property lines when measuring it. But in order to make sure you captured seeing the entire forested canopy, to include in the tree survey, the requirement for an aerial photograph of the property and all adjacent properties within a year of filing of the site plan, so that you as the planning commission would be aware conceptual about where the woodlands were.
So on that note, we're planning on having that back in front of the board at the next meeting, hopefully. If we can have it done before the next Wednesday.
Okay.
So, because of the restructuring of the planning and zoning department being back under the building department, as it used to be, and Dave's overseeing it now, the MAFs are being created by Carlisle and Wortman for us, the ones that we, like this ordinance that we're doing there, that Megan's gonna make that. And then I'm gonna put it, whoever's the liaison to the planning commission is going to be the one to put it on the township board on behalf of the planning commission, so it's done by a, somebody on the board or on the planning commission. So that's gonna be the process, and I think with that, we can track the second readings and make sure that things are moving along and that we're getting them finished up and that they're getting to their conclusions, There also was another ordinance that I had brought forward that didn't come to the planning commission. It was about stormwater management, just so you guys are aware. The county only regulates over 1 acre parcels. Well, not regulates, they have a standard to regulate 1 acre and above parcels. And for years, the township has about 150 commercial properties that are under 1 acre in our township. And they were being blanketed under the caveat that all commercial properties must meet the county stormwater management standard, except there wasn't one for under 1 acre. And to achieve that goal was a detriment to development and redevelopment. It made a problem for those sites. So I worked with Dave McKee and Dan Kelly and Chuck File, the supervisor, Dick Carlisle, Megan. Everybody talked about it and said, that makes sense. Let's align ourselves with the county standards. So with some caveats that if a petitioner comes in with a parcel under 1 acre and their engineers can design a stormwater management system that will work on their parcel because of its small size and not put any more water into the storm system, that a normal one would, or into the ditches, that they hold us harmless if their system fails, and they sign a stormwater management maintenance agreement that they will maintain it, that they can come to the township board and seek a waiver to have the stormwater management system that's designed and approved by our engineers, approved so they can move forward with the redevelopment or development. So that went through with the first reading, no comments, no changes. no issues. Everybody understood this alignment was hindering us from getting redevelopment and new projects, and the board unanimously voted for the first reading. So we're hoping to bring that one forward at the next meeting in 2 weeks also.
That's cool.
Sam, how does that affect stormwater management systems that are already in place, that are old?
I knew that you
Like,
were gonna bring that
I'm gonna
up.
ask about the fountains. I don't know if you remember the last time we had a really heavy rain, the water was all over the road, even Spring Lake, you couldn't even see the road. That was
Right.
before they replaced the road, so.
Now, I've been an advocate for trying to get some sort of plan together on especially the retention ponds and dredging and stormwater management, because I keep telling everyone at higher levels that that's gonna be our next SAD problem. When all the stormwater ponds and retention ponds fail that we put in 30 years ago, it's gonna be so expensive to get rid of the spoils because you've let it build so far that
Yeah.
you can't de-water on your own property, and you have to take them somewhere, that's gonna be unobtainably affordable to HOAs and their nest egg of money that they have, and they're
Like
gonna
double.
become, understandably, and they're gonna be coming to the township looking for that, and I've been kinda putting that in everybody's ear, like, we gotta get ahead of this before that becomes a catastrophic failure. We're getting a lot of pounds that are close to just sheeting water now instead of retaining because the silt's so high. Now, bigger, more expensive neighborhoods like Oakhurst who have a lot more participants, they just did, I think, 7 ponds last year for like $400,000.
Dredge them out.
And they dredged them, and I think, from when I talked to the Amanda who scheduled that, I think they said they gained something crazy, like $7 million gallons of retention capacity after that dredging. But they didn't go ask the homeowners, they did it as a property management company,
They did
knowing
silt
that
removal.
it was a necessity, that it needed to be done to get ahead of a catastrophic failure. The smaller subdivisions don't operate like that, and it's a concern, so immediately when I saw the caveat in this waiver that they had to have a stormwater management agreement, I thought of you, because you're hot on that, and I asked if, well, it's because it's
think
something
of stormwater, I
something
think
that's
of you.
important you
It's
gotta be
very
thinking
true.
about. I just wanted to know if we were going to start, I did ask that question, I didn't get a definitive answer, of how that played into us moving forward and also doing that, to have some sort of way of monitoring the developments, because I do think that's a real threat that's coming down the road, and the homeowners are gonna have nobody else to ask but us for their help,
Right.
and we need to have a plan for it, so, but that's a whole nother issue, but that's kind of an update of what happened Tuesday night that pertains to what we do.
Regarding the ordinance you were just talking about, that's not the zoning that's not in the zoning ordinance, it's in the other one, isn't it?
Be in the general ordinance?
General ordinance,
Or
which we're,
Code of ordinance.
code,
code of ordinance?
and that's why it didn't come to planning commission. And then, if you haven't watched the board meeting where we approved that, or did the first reading of that tree thing, I encourage everybody to watch it. You have nothing else to report, Megan?
Nope.
Discussion items, just a comment, well, Sam, do you wanna fill us in on the changes? You hinted at it in the building and planning department?
Basically, Megan's gonna be handling, the day-to-day operations, if they go to, not the day-to-day operations, but the I don't know how you handle the petitioners, the projects coming in.
I don't think all of that's been defined yet. We did have a meeting that Sheriff Scarborough was at, and I've met with Mr. Moran and Mr. Oppheimer, but it's not defined about who's doing what, when, and how the different tasks are being allocated. That's in progress.
Okay, well, I know Brian's still helping with putting some of the packages together, right? Is he not? What we
He put
think?
together the package for all of this. Again, it's not clear who's doing what.
Okay.
We're still in the process of assigning tasks and reconfiguring how this looks.
It's transition, we're in transition.
Maybe you can bring us a racy one
Huh?
that's kind of hammered out, like here's our
Yeah.
new responsibilities, that might help us, like, just a.
The target was by the end of the year that we would, working the bugs out of the transition would happen, so we're kind of in a,
Yeah, 3 months.
we're kind of all pitching in, you know, me and Bill went and met with Dave. Dave's overseeing the planning department, he's not running the planning department. So that's where Brian, mixture of Brian, Megan, Kate. Is she-
Kate will be involved.
Kate would,
and
you know-
Administrative functions, public notices and some other things too, so we're trying to figure it out. Really, it's just a transition period between now and the first of the year, so.
So if somebody came into the township and went to the building and planning department, I think that Kate probably would be the one that greets them at the,
We're
one of-
still operating as normal right now.
okay, somebody's gonna meet him at the counter.
So nobody's dropping a job, you just keep doing it until it's redefined. I read it in the paper, so I'm as informed as the newspaper lets me be, so I would say, once you guys figure it out, maybe a nice response, a racy of who's doing what would be helpful for us.
Megan, once a project gets some momentum, you're the primary, person that's gonna be
Don't think
reviewing
I
the plan.
can't, again, it's not been
Yeah.
defined.
Let's,
Sure on that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get,
Okay. I would,
Very
in light of that, I would ask
Nobody's giving me any orders.
any and all of you, if you're not gonna make a planning commission meeting,
Call someone.
send me an email,
do that,
okay?
we'll post it online.
Somebody down there, you want?
Do we envision that there's gonna be a planning and zoning department like there was, just moving it
Like
in
there
its
is.
entirely, or is underneath?
There's nothing gonna change, there always will be a planning zoning department.
Okay, so it's just like where it's
It'll be-
reporting,
It's gonna now be building, planning, zoning,
right,
like it is in many municipalities,
yeah.
We used to be that way.
yeah.
but distinctly different.
We'll figure it out.
Like the building department, the planning, and zoning department.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
We're just combining them, they've been combined.
I don't think we're helping you, just keep asking questions.
Just see how
Get
it all
the
works.
same answer.
See how it all works out, make sure it all gets to the
I
board.
don't haven't figured
you
anything
know?
out, but let me ask you this.
Okay, next, topic of follow-up, Joe, as vice chairman, has volunteered to keep track of follow-up stuff that we wanna
Yeah.
bring up at the meetings, and you got something to add to
Yeah,
that? Joe?
well, just a couple of things, as an example, but I'm not doing any kind of a dive on this example. But like last meeting, Commissioner Morago moved in Trinity Health, that's the second wall sign, blah, 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 and that towards the end it says, any additional signs that are not applicable should be removed. That was, I don't know who said that. Okay, but there, in the motion that was made, there's a lot of little follow-up items in there. Recent discussions over the last year have been, we don't know what's going on once something leaves the
That's
planning
true.
commission meeting. You know, we put conditions on things, and that's the last we ever hear of it. So I said, well, why don't we just, you know, keep track of it, you know, in a logging kind of a fashion, which I said, okay, I would start. Anyway, so I just simply ran out of time today, because I'll give you an example of a form that I created, but it's not filled out, because I just ran out of time today. My new wifely duties are just driving
They're
me-
new?
Yeah, they're driving me insane. And I will do this, but I'm just gonna ask you questions. Would this be helpful if I completed this for our conditional approvals and then updated it and sent out copies or gave them to you? You know, like, you know, I fill this out, it'd be project number, name and petitioner, blah, blah, blah. The approval that was granted, you know, which is what would be out of the minutes, you know, I'm not gonna create anything. And then the condition that's required to be met, you know, we would specify down here. And then at every meeting, I'd bring up for discussion points all of the logs that I have that haven't been closed out.
I think that's a great
For a
idea.
report and say, where are we? Like, for instance, what's going on with the sign ordinance, the sign with, who the heck is,
Trinity Health.
I mean, it's not, nobody's talking about it, or, you know, so I would bring it up.
We're in the middle of a transition
Yeah.
of department, so Dave, if you mind, I don't know if you're familiar with what we're talking about, but there was a couple, Trinity Health came and asked for additional wall signs on the old, Rite Aid, I think it was a Rite Aid, right?
Yes.
Next to
Yeah.
the tap by Crispelli's, right? With that was a caveat of wanting to add a banner on top of the monument signs up by the road at Dixie and M15. What came out of the discussion is that we did not want to allow it because we didn't believe that the signs themselves were conforming themselves because they exceed the 6-foot limit. So since that development was put in, there's 2 concrete columns, and the signs used to go to the top of the concrete columns, and on top of those concrete columns were some pediment balls that were decorative. Now the center panels of the sign have exceeded the 6-foot top of the concrete, of the brick columns, and are all the way up to the top of the balls at 7 feet tall. And then they were requesting to put an additional marquee on top of that, and the planning commission said, we're not confident that the signs themselves are in compliance in the first place, and we're not in favor of, we can't grant them a variance to exceed that 6-foot mandatory height, you know? So what, Joe's kind of referring to is, okay, we had all that discussion, we talked about it. We don't ever find out what was done about it. Is it gonna come back to us? Are the signs going to be made into compliance? We definitely told the petitioner that we were not approving the marquee to be added on top of that sign, and he reiterated his understanding that we were not allowing that urgent care banner to be put on top of everything because we felt that would not be in compliance. And kind of, we've had a lot of these over the years that we talk about things or point out things, but that we never get any feedback back. We don't know if they've ever been followed up on. We're not making a formal report to to code enforcement, as a planning commission. Like, is there a better, maybe you can think about it, a better way for us to communicate or us to get feedback? And that's kind of what Joe's talking about, is we don't want to let the loose ends go unnoticed. After we've identified them, we kind of want to make sure that somebody's chasing it or concluding it's okay or following through, and then just letting us know, yeah, it's good. And that's kind of the basis of us putting our foot down kind of with petitioners bringing us projects forward. We don't want loose ends. We don't want to have you chase down a shopping list of conditions that were made as part of the motion. We want it right, we want it on paper, and we want it accurate, and when you get that done, then you get to come to us. So maybe they need another pre-con meeting, or they need to revise their plans again after the consultant reports come out, or whatever it takes to get it to that level of accuracy prior to getting to us, so it's
It's
just.
documented on the site plan too, going forward.
Right, on the site plan.
Because all those conditions are just in the minutes, they're not documented on the site plan.
Such
or
as
anything,
Dork
so-
Financial.
Right, so we don't know who's chasing those, and we don't want to pay
You
the.
have the tools there, I mean, you just put it in the minutes, it's a zoning code ordinance violation, you just put in a violation, you set up a code enforcement, and follow it up from there. So you have the tool already in place, it's just like you said, though, nobody's initiating the code enforcement.
I have a comment.
I would come to after that.
Okay, you won't like mine. I don't like this.
Oh,
And I don't want you to do it.
oh, okay.
And I don't want it added to the meeting. I don't want to sit at the end of this meeting and go through 50 things. Dave, what about this one on the sign? And let's talk for 10. We have, our meetings are too long. I don't want to do this here. I want people to be able to come to the meetings and listen to our dialogue and us make decisions on plans and move forward. Having said that, I agree, some things are loose. I was the first one that said, on the one plant, there's 25 things here, we're not doing this, right? So we need to be clean about having very few follow-up items so that we don't have this problem. I think what should happen is Dave assigns someone in the building department to track any open issues brought in the minutes as we approve plans on one master tracking sheet. I don't want you to do it.
That'd be great.
Because I don't want you sending it out, and then I ask you a question, and then Sam pipes in, and then suddenly we're having an illegal meeting online. I don't want to do it. I think the planning department should put it, you can put it online somewhere, and the public can see it. Here's the log of everything we're working on. This one's closed, and the date, and we don't do it at the meeting. I want to make sure it's followed up on, but this is going to waste a huge amount of time at the meeting, and it's going to be people, I think we've got this going on. Let's just do one master log of outstanding to-dos from plan approvals. Let's have it on the township site or somewhere here, and you can send it out before each meeting. If I have a question that I don't understand why this is still open, Dave, it was 3 months ago, I'll just call you, and we'll find out. But I don't think this should be at the meeting. We'll do 40 minutes on this thing, trying to plow through, and we will not get through it. We'll get through like 5 or 6 items, and then we'll I thought I remembered we did it, I don't want to do that at the meeting. I think it's
Because
a
it's
bad idea.
ultimately up to the building
It's,
department
the
anyway.
building
so.
department owns the follow-up on if we say handle this administratively, that's what we mean. And I don't want to get in your way of doing it. I just think it's very transparent to put them on there and just knock them off as they go and say, we've got 15 open items from the last 3 plans. Here's where they are. And maybe it has a target date for completion or something on it, but I don't think you need the help. I think we just need to be more transparent about
It's already in place,
who's running it down, yeah.
Right.
That's my personal opinion. I don't want to, I want to suspend our time on plan reviews and approvals.
Dave,
Joe?
how would you suggest that, like a delegate from our committee go online and put it on the, on the.
Let me think about it. I don't wanna just off the cuff comment on it. We already have the tool in place. It's code enforcement, you set that up. There's ways to follow up. There's a standard procedure that we follow. It gets recorded, it goes onto the website, it's already posted, there's public knowledge, public information, so, let me think about the
Well, there's-
logistics of what you're describing. but-
There's other things other than, like,
Yeah,
the
that's right.
sign, where we discovered the sign ordinance, the sign as it sits doesn't meet our ordinance. I can't remember the name of it now, that, new apartment building at Sashaba and, Dixie and Maybe back in there that we approved, there was approved subject to, a subcommittee to review what they were gonna finally do with the roof deck. Now, that's not a ordinance violation, it was just something needed to be followed up on.
Condition of approval, right?
Yeah,
Right,
so.
but they've never started building it.
that-
Well, they
no,
never came
That's
back.
my understanding, but,
They never came
yeah,
back.
and that's why I've quit asking what happened to it, because it seems to be dead, but, I think it was worthwhile to follow up on that.
I guess
at
how would we
time.
know if they went forward with
Look
that?
at this master tracking sheet and see if it was done.
Okay.
I appreciate Joe trying to, I don't think he's right, I don't think it should be a
I-
commissioner doing this.
I think there's a place for a version of this, because I think there are things that we discuss at planning commission, like that roof deck, that it is nice. You know, my concern is that that project continues to go along the path and and the roof deck committee is never formed. And I want to follow up to make
Right.
sure.
Well,
So maybe we just do it on a.
We did form a
one-
committee. It just never.
I'm not aware of
I
any.
was on it and Sam was on it.
Well, you never met, yeah.
Because nothing ever happened. I mean,
So I'm thinking maybe we just designate specific items, and not everything that's in every minutes. Megan?
When I've been in charge of zoning departments, what we always do is we have a report that goes every month to the planning commission and the elected body that lists every single case that's been in front of the planning commission for the past year, and then it stays on there and is updated until a CFO is issued. So that you can know whether if it's under construction and whatnot, so that the city council or township board and planning commission then see that it was passed on this date, it's under construction now, or pre-construction happened, and then that is that tracking mechanism.
I don't think that's the same thing. So like, you're talking about tracking the stage of where it is in
No,
the
I'm
evolution.
saying that it's like a chart and it's.
It also has the to-dos on it?
Yeah, it
Okay.
says this is
The
this,
conditions
it
of the
was
approval.
passed with these
Then you got
conditions,
it.
these conditions
Yep.
happened, and then it's updated monthly.
Okay.
And then goes back into, is given monthly to the planning commission and the elected body.
Right.
So every single one of you has information about things that you voted on and where they are. And I agree with Planning Commissioner Lohmeyer that that should be a staff function, because they have access to the most information, and that you should be kept up to date about it by, and then whoever is in charge of that report, or there should be a point person then who, if somebody has a question about that they contact that person, or if they have something that they want added to or detail, that they talk to a staff person or a consultant who's in charge of it, in order to have the information updated.
The only time it should come back here, guys, is if you need help. We did something, hey, something's changed, this requirement we have a problem with, we need to amend it. It should be, we need help from the planning commission. Dave's should manage his staff, the supervisor manages Dave. If it's like, this one's been open for a year, it shouldn't be here, that we're not the police, right? The decision was made, the requirement was set, there's a different arm for that. But if I have a question, I'm like, that was really important, I still don't see it done, I need to call you myself. And if I see a need to bring it back in because a decision needs to come in, then I'll petition for an agenda item. But if I'm trying to be efficient here. If we do this, every meeting, I'm gonna have a question, you're gonna have a question, we're gonna spend 45 minutes, pounding on stuff you didn't have a chance to look into. It's just not the place for it. We need to keep this strategy and planning and decision-making. Not that the other stuff isn't important, but we'll need an 8-hour meeting for that. And and if we do put it at the end of the meeting to do that, I'm walking out before we do it. That's not being mean, I'm just like, I'm not staying for this. Let's see if Dave's doing his job, just, that's what's gonna turn into. Okay?
Bill?
Joe?
Okay, this, is morphing into something that more than it was, meant to be. This was to track conditions that were put on approvals to see whether or not those conditions had been met, period. Now, not every motion or approval has conditions, so, and I'm not disagreeing, I don't particularly like to do this, but.
No, I think you're admirable for trying.
Well,
That's great.
but, I think there's been a lot of frustration here, at least in the year I've been around here, that we don't know what the heck is going on. We say we approve this and on this condition, and then we go to Planet, Car Wash, and there's things that haven't been approved yet, and they've built this stand already, and, this, that, and the other thing, and are we gonna get this list every month from now on that you just described?
I would love to see that.
Yeah,
Post it
I mean,
online.
that will
It's
help.
public information.
Yeah. Let us talk with, as
Yeah.
we're going.
It's a code enforcement, it's already on the website.
Okay, but
Code enforcement's already
but most of this is not code enforcement, I don't think.
Right.
That's the
Well,
tool
not.
of what you should be using.
But if it's not relating to codes, then why should we, it'd be nice to use that, but it's not relating to codes.
Right now, we're 1 week into the transition, so I think that it's
Yeah.
good. Dave, thank you for coming tonight, because we do need somebody to vent to, who understands what we're talking about, so we can get to that.
Yeah, I think you just take it back as the commission would like to see some mechanism to know that the stuff got done, that was put in as conditional approvals, and you guys can, if that's,
Where do we find that information?
yeah, if that's a window into the code enforcement thing, then tell us how to access it and get at it, and we're gonna try and minimize this, right, just, the same message to all of us, so we can see it.
I know.
Spread rooftop ordinance.
Well, let's give the department a little time to figure out where they're going.
I'm fine with that.
I don't think it's just code enforcement. It's,
It isn't.
There's other things.
you make an approval subject to a corrected landscape
Yep.
plan.
Good example.
You wanna make sure that that's done and you get it. So it's,
Well, and part of that too, I'm gonna add to that, was Dave, we had talked about that, we wanna start looking into, and I think I talked to you about even the site plans, are supposed to run in perpetuity with the property, and we got, some of them we have copies of, some of them are so old we don't know. And one of our biggest concern is when we do go back to look up, are you in conformity? We don't know if it's really the plan we approved. We don't know if it's the plan we approved with conditions. you know, that's on file, which means then you'd have to go back to the minutes, and then you'd have to go through a shopping list of, you know, like, we want it, and one of the reasons why we're asking for more complete plans with less loose ends is so that you feel comfortable getting an old plan and it is depicting what was actually approved. You don't have to go back through 3 meetings of minutes and find the shopping list of items. And we don't want to be paying Megan to chase those loose ends. We don't want to be paying anybody in the building and planning department to be chasing those loose ends. That's on the developer to get it right in the first place, you know?
There is an app that's on your website that's active in development projects and public comment.
Mhm.
So I just went to that, and when I look at Trinity Health second wall sign, it has the project status, requesting, but it has a final site plan date of 9/11, but it doesn't have the approval conditions on there, and then whether they're checked off or not. So maybe this is more that we talk to Brian about how we use this app to track those things.
Could be.
And then if a report could be generated out of it.
It's program management is what we're talking about. It's like, here's a list of tasks that were to be done, how do you see when they waterfall off, right?
Do you see yourself having an opportunity to have that conversation?
I think we can,
I missed the question.
I think we can have that conversation when Brian gets back from this conference.
Okay,
You can add that.
okay.
My suggestion is the simplest tool is often the best.
So now I can tell Dave's anxious to get out of here, so. How about I think we're done, we're on to
Hour per agenda item, okay.
Clearly.
a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That wasn't me, Chris. It was me.
No, it's all right. No, I had, my daughter had oral surgery today, she's sitting on my couch.